And yeah, so that we really does go on to embrace our clerks, our staff, our team. They are the ones who are there day in and day out. They're the ones who really, really know our customers, who really, really know the product, and have the most to contribute on a day-to-day basis. So that communication with that team is huge, 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 huge for us, because without that, we would be floundering, if not completely closed.
Hey, everybody, it's Comic Industry Insiders, your weekly conversation with people behind the scenes of the comic book industry and the people who make it run, where you get to learn about what it takes to build a business or career in comics. And this week's guest is one I've been looking forward to. Like, I tried 60 interviews ago to get him on. He just keeps putting me off. But thank God we finally have on the show Mr. Lee Heidel. Lee is did I get that right? Is it Heidel?
Oh yeah, you did it perfect.
Okay,
high like
good.
a skull, high like the sky, dull like an old knife. That's what I used to tell my high school kids.
Oof, boy. Okay. So not only does Lee have material for everything, but he has one of my favorite comic shops I've been in many, many years. We did a tour for The Future Is and went all the way down the East Coast, and we stopped at some amazing comic shops, and they were all unique as the neighborhoods they were in and the proprietors that ran them. And Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia is no different. It is it's a beautifully curated and laid out space, and I am just so thrilled to finally have Lee on the show. Lee, first question: how many pairs of glasses do you own?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say number 61, baby. Super happy to be here. I've claimed my space. I don't know if that's an official number, but
I don't know either.
I'm going to claim it. I'm number 61 in the Atom deck.
Is that how many pairs of glasses you own? Because I would believe
Close.
61. I would.
No. I buy 4 to 6 pair a year, and I've reached that golden age in my life where my prescription doesn't change that often, and so I kind of am stockpiling now.
What does that feel like? What is that magical place like, Lee?
It's really nice. So when I wake up, let me give you the full picture. So I wake up as a man of limited hair on the top of my head and just enough on the bottom to let you know that I can produce it.
Understood.
You know nothing about that. I walk over to my bureau in the morning where I see my swatch collection laid out and my glasses collection laid out, and I think, what kind of day is today gonna be?
Which Lee is showing up today? Is it sassy Lee? Is it bright sparkly Lee? Are you subdued tones today, Lee? You know?
Oh, I don't really have anything subdued toned. I'm not the guy you invite to the funeral. Sorry, I'm going to be the one who's shining on the side a little bit.
Oh, you're definitely doing my funeral. You're going to be the officiate. Who is it? I don't know. I don't even know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, can we get that in writing, though, by the way? I need our producer to chime in and let me know that we can. That's a contract, so I am going to do that.
I believe that. Yeah, I understand.
Today, I started with the Conehead the Barbarian shirt. So
nice.
I knew that was going to be red and yellow, hence the yellow glasses, hence the Simpsons watch.
I see.
And I knew I was going to talk to you, so I had to kind of dress it up a little bit.
You stack a bit. You gotta make sure the logo is there. You know, I see it. That's it's just like everything else that Lee Heidel is involved in. It's well curated. Let's put it that way, right?
It's very kind of you, sir.
It's I will say that I have been when I talk about the stores that we went to over this tour, I do talk about each of them. We didn't go into a dud the whole time, and yours, when I talk about it, it is that word curated, because it is a small store. You're what? Maybe 1,000 square feet. Am I getting that right?
Including the storage room. Yes.
Including the storage room.
Yeah, 900 floor, square footage for the fixtures.
But I will say that as somebody who is into comics, and obviously I've been at this for a while, there was no section where I didn't go, ooh, no, I don't need to carry that home. Oh, every single thing had something I had either been looking for or something I had, I'd never seen before. One of the stories I tell about going to comic shops is when Rory Root of Comics Relief in Berkeley died, we all went and as comics retailers, we all went to the memorial. It's crazy that two different funeral references come up in the same conversation. Anyway, we all went on a tour of the Bay Area shops, and I realized they fell into two categories. There were the ones where I would say, as a young man, I'd walk into here and go, "Oh, right, I'm going to spend all day here. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to root around in all of these boxes. I'm going to find something I've never seen before." And then as an older man, I would go, "Ugh, I'm going to have to stay all day here. I'm going to have to root around in all these boxes just to find something I had never seen before." Neighborhood Comics does an incredible job of being the one that I need as an older me, right? As the one who has been through, many, many, many comic shops and done that. Let's talk about that. So when you are starting to build Neighborhood Comics, is that really is that your goal? Because it seems to be what you push towards.
Yeah. So I had a really clearly defined parameter of what the shop needed to be in order for it to work for me and to work for the neighborhood, to work for my family, to work for all these different constraints that we have. And like you, I've been to a lot of comic shops and a lot before opening our shop. And my family had very strong feelings on what kind of shop that we needed to open, and I agreed with them. So the kind of short pitch of why we have a comic shop is when my kiddo was about 5, she got into My Little Pony books. As you do at whatever age and stage of life, you're going to get into them. You're going to get into them.
We all go through our My Little Pony phase. It's
exactly.
100%.
And I was so excited because I was a lapsed comic reader, and I was like, ooh, this is something we can do together. And so Art Balthazar and Franco had the Tiny Titans book that was coming out at that time, that was really expansive in like their character choices, but really fun. So she was getting to, like kids are with dinosaurs, she was knowing this vast catalog of DC characters in a really new, fresh way. And so we were able to talk about those and kind of show the different versions of them. It was great. And at that time, we did not have a local comic shop that was what I call new reader friendly. Okay. It was really geared more towards the diggers to come in, to go through things. Even though they carried new books,
sure,
it was a floor-to-ceiling stacked kind of environment where she, at that age and at that point in her life, did not feel welcome there. Like she actually felt at 5, she was able to kind of articulate, I don't really want to go, can you go get my books? And I was just heartbroken. I didn't grow up with a comic book shop. I didn't grow up with this kind of access. I was buying them off spinner racks if I could find comics at all, growing up in a small town. And that really, really hurt. And so I talked to a couple of other dads, specifically dads of girls, and they all said the same thing, or really close approximation of it. It's like, yeah, we were really jiving. And then at some point she was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. And it's heartbreaking. So when it came time to put together our shop, not that we're a kid store or, we don't have any more of our square footage devoted to young readers probably than any other store owner that you talk to on the show, but we really wanted to make it new reader friendly, whatever that meant for that person, so that they could come in. It's overwhelming, overwhelming no matter what size store and how much you curate and what it's thousands, tens of thousands of titles. It's going to be overwhelming anyway, but let's make sure that they can see from front to back in the store that there's natural light coming in, that there is a friendly face right up front to welcome you in and to start asking some leading questions that can help you actually not be a new reader anymore, but to be one of us.
Right.
and to be confident. And whether you like superheroes or indie books or YA stuff, it doesn't matter. We're all here because we like stories. We want to participate in some way. And that is ideally where the kind of scope of the shop came from. And when it came time to kind of fill in the blanks, our first 3 years, it looked like an art gallery. There was so little merchandise in our store. And I loved it for lots of reasons. Like, I could say at that time, I probably have read every book in the store. I can no longer say that. Not even close. But it was slowly built on purpose, inventory-wise, so that we could have more control and could speak more educatedly about the product that we had. Sure. And that we could legitimately vouch for everything. And even if it's not my cup of tea, to be able to confidently talk to a new visitor to the shop and say, hey, you came in here looking for vampire, apocalypse. That's not really what I read. But I will tell you this, and I'm able to have that kind of knowledge. But as the store's grown and as we've brought on employees, they all have their niches, their own things that they love. And so it really has gotten to be a bigger pull of what we can talk about. But like you said, when you are dealing with 900 square feet and we try to have face out as much as possible.
Right. Which was really remarkable how it felt like there was a real depth of inventory. But when I looked at it, again, 900 square feet and nearly everything was face out. Joe Keating, who was with me, actually noted that, right? That how much of this was, was so well displayed. You would think that in that kind of really small space, everything would be really cramped, but it didn't feel that way. So
fixtures are a big part of that, and we really have struggled over the years. Started off making our own fixtures because we couldn't get the look that we wanted at a price we could afford. And the current configuration is essentially a Saks Fifth Avenue shoe warehouse. So one of those closed down in, I think, Orlando. And I bought all their fixtures off Facebook Marketplace and paid these guys to move it up. And the cool thing about that is they have the 45-degree shelves with a lip that are designed for shoe boxes. And it works pretty well. It's not perfect. I would like a steeper angle and some other things, but for what we paid and what we were able to do with the space, kind of a la carte, and that would have been 4.5 years in, it's made a huge difference just being able to have that modular shelving.
I know that we, when I was a retailer, my biggest score was finding that no longer produced, and they weren't produced when I found them, the shoe racks that IKEA put out, and they had an adjustable angle. And if you got them at just the right angle, they were perfect for displaying new comics. Because you think, you want them to be able to sit in a stack, but you also want to be able to see the face. It's a difficult thing to do without having some sort of plexi or something. So,
and then shadows and everything else. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of what that's our struggle now, really, is because of the depth of the shelves, we've got a lot of shadows. So it's trying to figure out lighting and trying to figure out, all these. That's not what I went to school for, Adam. I don't know how to do this. So it's one thing at a time.
I'm setting up a new office here, and anybody who's following watching every episode will hopefully see it develop over time. But just now, as we're getting started, because there was some mix up with the times, I sat down and I realized that whatever this design I've come up with is almost exactly the thing that Dirk Wood in the early days of social media would go to this site that would show mugshots of just different people, and he would just share with you the mugshot that looks like you. And whatever this is, the postage stamp of my face I can see right now is that mugshot of that guy. I don't know what he got arrested for, but obviously I have no idea what I'm doing. That's all. My
stealing a bunch of short boxes. It looks like.
Well, it's these
those
drawer
with
boxes,
the shelves
man.
too. The drawers, yeah, those are hard to come by.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, they cost a penny, but they're worth it when you're dealing with this many comps. It's every client sends us comps, and I can't seem to get rid of them. Someday I'll figure that out.
Well, there is. I'll say really quickly. I think it was Chip Zdarsky and some of those other Canadian crew. They get together and they have like a comps party.
Yeah,
and they invite people to come and get them for free.
Comp
like,
Con, I think they call it. Yeah, at that the Raid studio. Yeah, I know. I've thought about that, but now that I live in the suburbs, I don't know. Maybe in Harvard, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Someday we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to go back. There are a couple pieces that I wanted to touch on really quickly before we leave this. One is, how are you thinking about new product as it comes in? I mean, the big question, and one of the things that we are going to deal with when we talk about POS systems and that sort of thing, is the number of SKUs that every retailer has to mentally process every single month. So talk about some of the rules that you have for ordering in order to keep that sort of to justify its place in this 900 square feet.
Yeah. So, and especially because of us and kind of our focus on trying to have a really diverse product line, I buy a lot outside of the normal distributor channels, whether it's buying directly from publishers, buying directly from artists. We do a lot of that. Yeah. So balancing our inventory cost really is spread out over so many different fronts, so many more than just the 2 or 3, 6, 12 major distributors we have right now, right? So that can be, and that's something I have to be really careful with, because I am very quick to try to support some of these smaller publishers or self-publishers, especially if it's something that we have a connection to or really believe in. So we have always had a very strong focus on new single issues, and I think that continues to do very well for us. It is a Wednesday, and I checked the sales before we got on the call, and I'm like, good. Okay, good. And immediately it started thunderstorming outside. So I'm like, okay, well, that may be where we end for the day, but that was a good start. So nobody wants to buy paper when it's raining. That's so weird.
Shocking.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a 60-foot wall of new releases. So that's a lot of our real estate really is, the last 4 months of single issue comics. And while we don't make as much per issue on those, while we, obviously are going to make more money off hardcovers and graphic novels and things that we have a better markup on or a larger percentage overall of the price, there's something really special about being a comic book store and actually selling a lot of comic books.
Yeah.
and that's not the right fix for everybody. I'm not going to pretend like it is, because it is really every 6 months or so, I think, okay, how do we trim our single issues down? Because they're not a big enough percentage of our revenue base. When you look at it,
how does that break down for you?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers, but it is, most of our revenue comes from, if you look at it really just total dollars, the really nicer high-end things. They cost more expensive, and then they have enough of a markup built in. And for me, I'm particularly with our store talking about things like artist editions, those kind of new product, $100 plus items. Now, we don't sell insane numbers of them, but if we sell 20 or 50, that's already a bigger product center than a month of new comics for us. So we are able and lucky to have a client base that is really interested in those kinds of things, whether the scholarship aspect behind comics, we're in a college town, we have a lot of artists who live and work there. So there is a real desire to have the nicest version of the thing, which is pretty great. I love that. I love having those for myself when I can afford it, and I totally get it. But from there, it goes down to your traditional trade paperbacks, hardcover graphic novels. We don't break manga out as a separate category, and I'm actually really, really considering shelving manga by genre like everything else, so that we no longer have a manga section. It keeps growing, which is great,
Yeah.
you know. And obviously, I could do a publisher breakdown and kind of figure out, you know, for the most part, where our manga numbers come from. But what's going to stop somebody who loves, you know, a book like Chew from also loving a Junji Ito book or whatever? But they think it's not for them, and that goes both ways. Yeah. I'm super excited about trying to get some of our really dedicated manga readers, these younger readers, that's all they've ever read, to pick up Western books. And it's almost more that switch that I'm trying to make than the other. And not love what you love. I think that's great, but you're going to find that there are other stories being told that you're also going to love. And by diversifying that and spreading that out a little bit, I'm scared to death of it, number one, because...
What scares you about it?
Well, we do have... It's a section that people know they can go to get their stuff. So that's one. And when you start breaking anything out by genre, how many of your favorite books fit into one little box?
Oh, right, exactly. And then you're buying multiple copies so that they can be spread around the store. Yeah.
It's science fiction, but it's also coming of age. You know, like I just can't tell you that that's all this book is. And then the format, you know, your trim size, where manga is so uniform for the most part.
Right.
And Western books also have some unified trim sizes, but we buy a lot of stuff from like Magnetic and other publishers that do some really interesting stuff that suits the size of the work. And that's already a challenge. So now I've got to fit tiny little paper book backs next to it and make it seem like they're the same thing, right? So I think there's a way to crack it. I think there's a way to crack the code. I just don't know it yet, without still kind of stigmatizing one type of format over another. But
well, I have faith that of all the people I know, that you will find it, and we'll see it on at some point.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, man, you really are from the South. The bless your heart. Before we leave, I want to go back and do some kind of early Lee stuff. But before we do that, you talk a lot about and you're listed as the managing partner of Neighborhood Comics. What does the ownership of that look like? How did you guys put that together? How did it all come together?
Yeah, so we are a three-partner LLC, technically, just from our business standpoint. So there are three people who made a significant investment in the business at the beginning to make the big business happen, to get it off the ground. And these two other investors are the two other dads I was talking about in the daughters getting into comics story, you know.
Aww.
And it's something that, you know, we all wanted to do, but I was the only one at a point in my career where I could dedicate the time to do this as well as what else is going on in my life. Mm-hmm. So that is how I became the managing partner. It's not because of any secret knowledge I have, for sure. It's just because I was the one who could be boots on the ground for those first couple of years while we figured everything out. Yeah. And that is the biggest challenge to opening a specialty hobby store, direct market store, for whatever you want to call us. We're bookstores. I don't know why we go through all this rigmarole of trying to identify ourselves. We're bookstores. There is so much specific information that goes into this. And I knew that. I went in with my eyes open. I did years of research and business plans and talked to some wonderful retailers who know so much more than I ever will. So I didn't just wake up one day and say, let's open a comic book store. I have savings I want to lose. So there was more thought before I lost my savings.
You've got a barn. I've got a comics collection. Let's go lose some money. Yeah.
That's right. So that's our ownership kind of breakdown of it. I am a majority stakeholder in resources as well, but I was really, really committed to having it not just be me in the game, just be my skin in the game, to have people that had other expertise who I could call, especially in those early days, and they would actually have, more than just a friendly obligation. They'd have a business obligation, like, oh yeah, no, I know people in permitting. Let me call them right now, and we'll get this taken care of today. So things like that really, really, really came in handy. One of those guys is a master carpenter. He built so much of our stuff early on, put in a lot of sweat equity into the store. His son is our longest running employee. He's been working there since day one, and he's about to graduate college now, which is wild. And yeah, so that we really does go on to embrace our clerks, our staff, our team. They are the ones who are there day in and day out. They're the ones who really, really know our customers, who really, really know the product, and have the most to contribute on a day-to-day basis. So that communication with that team is huge, 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 huge for us. Because without that, we would be floundering, if not completely closed.
Well, we've covered we. Let's go to Lee for a minute. So tell us where you started. At some point, I know the only earliest thing I know about you is that you were a teacher. I don't even really sure know what grade level. It was some sort of prep. And I think you were an AP art teacher. That's as close as I can get. So
yeah.
Tell me about early Lee. Where do you get to?
Yeah,
how do you
for
get
sure.
To where you are?
So I grew up in a really small South Georgia town, the kind of place where people who lived in South Georgia would ask you where it was. It was it was smaller than small.
What's it called?
Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald
has a really interesting history, which I will not bore you with right now, but it involved being a fairly progressive southern city. There was actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to regale you with the 5-second story. After the Civil War, there was a newspaper man from Illinois, I believe, who had been down here, I guess, during all that stuff, or at least had enough reports back, and decided to start a town for Northerners to relocate to that had a better climate. And he made it a transportation hub, big, railroad crossings through there. I mean, it was never a big town, but he just entrepreneur from heck, man, just said, let's just make a town.
Let's build ourselves a little blue island.
Brought enough people down to do it. Yeah, I don't know how blue it is anymore, but there was a nice mix when I lived there. Yeah. And so I had a lot of opportunity to do things that were artistic and were creative. Like I said, no access to any kind of a comic on a regular basis, but I lived through the Super Friends cartoons, the Hanna-Barbera, the Space Ghosts, all of that was so very important to me. And I'm still not entirely sure why. I mean, it was obviously there, but what parts of that did make me hang on to it. Later on, things like the Superpowers toys really did re-solidify all of that for me and get me deep into the lore. And gosh, at that point you're into Jack Kirby and you're into Fourth World and you don't know it as a kid. You just know that oh, this guy's cool and different. Yeah. And I went to college at the University of Georgia to study political science. That did not last, in large part because I fell head over heels in love with comics. And so I was really lucky to have 3 comic shops that fueled this in the mid-90s. There was a legitimate newsstand on the main square downtown, right across from, if you're familiar with the University of Georgia, the arch that you see on everything, that the main North Campus stuff. You cross the street and there was a store that was a newsstand. They sold newspapers, magazines, comic books, nudie books, anything like that. If it came out as a periodical, they sold it. And the Barnett newsstand, that lasted for 100 years. Great, it's gone now, of course. But it was a really cool thing to go into a place that had new comics on spinner racks as a young adult and had them face out on magazine displays. And so, of course, they had Wizard and Toy Fair and all that other stuff that was coming out at the time, too. And 2 blocks down is Bizarro Wuxtry, which is still there. Wuxtry, the famous record store where the guys from REM met, it's still there. And then upstairs is their comic book store. And Devlin, the guy who ran it when I was there in college, is still calling the shots, man. He is super involved with the big Zine Fest that happens in Athens every year. Huge part of that creative community. And that's the kind of store, and I say this with all the love in my heart, you are constantly afraid that you're going to die. Because the floors go every way. It's an old building. It creaks and it moans, and the fixtures are older than the building. But it has such a breadth of comics history in that building. Yeah. I learned so much from Devlin, and just seeing how he got excited about things. I would say how he curated things, but he did not curate it. That store was literally anything he could get his hands on was in that store. And so you would have 1960s Mad magazines, and you would have the World's Finest Super Sons arcs, and you would find all of this kind of ephemera, just paper everywhere. And I would buy my weekly. I don't think I ever set up a subscription service, but I was a Wednesday, show up every Wednesday, get my books. And he just was so mean about the books I was buying. Kyle Rayner had just become Green Lantern. This guy is a graphic designer. He wears a 9 Inch Nails shirt. I changed my major to fine arts education because I'm like, I can study art and get a job.
Right.
Yeah. Big plans for me. And he was like, why are you reading this? I'm like, why are you selling it? But I didn't say that because I was scared to death of him, and I still am. And I was just like, I don't know.
I like it.
He's like, you should be reading this instead. And it was some Evan Dorkin book, it was probably Milk and Cheese. It, could have been any number of Dork. It could have been any number of things. But I fell head over heels then in the Love and Rockets, the self-published or the small press Fantagraphics 90s explosion of these books. Kitchen Sink Press, so much good, small, interesting point of view comics. And I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I really didn't know that was a thing. And so I found another comic shop across town. I had to actually drive to that one where I would get my superhero books.
So that he wasn't judging you for Kyle Rayner. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Correct. And I could just show, like, he ever read that book. He never opened it. But I could get my fix of the you should be reading this from Devlin, and the cool guy in the cool danger store. And then I could go to the much more bright, for the 90s especially, it was called Main Street Comics. It's no longer there, sadly. But it was so well lit. It was a large space. It was very, very modern for a comic book store. And I was able to go in and get, the back issue sets, all that kind of stuff that feeds a young collector, where you can read Crisis on Infinite Earths for $4 or whatever at the time. And you could go through and start to realize or dig in on these really esoteric, weird characters. So that was my introduction to comic book stores, really. Got an art degree, taught high school at a military boarding academy for a number of years.
A military boarding academy.
In the art education department at the University of Georgia, you were told over and over again that you were not going to have a budget. You are going to be doing art at a cart, they called it, where you'd have to push a cart around the hallways. You'd never have your own space. Forget all of these highfalutin lesson plans. You're going to be lucky if you get paper and pencils, right? Uh-huh. Well, I happened to luck into a crazy job where I had a crazy budget to teach wayward youths from all over the world about art. And it was weird, not going to lie. I had to wear like literally an army uniform to work every day. It's totally stolen valor, by the way. I don't think they should make people do that.
Do you still have your army uniform?
No. There are pictures. There are photos that exist. But no, I turned that back in on my way out the door so they could pass that along to somebody else.
Please, I'm good. No, I'm all right.
But the kids were, regardless of why they were there, and some of the kids were there because they loved the military. You know, they
Sure.
wanted, their families had the money to send them someplace. But we had a lot of kids who were there because they weren't doing what they should be doing at home. But the international base was really kids that came from fairly wealthy families who needed leadership training and firearms training. You connect those dots however you want. These are kids from Venezuela. These are kids from Russia.
Gotcha. Okay.
And their day was super regimented. You know, it's very obviously they live in the barracks. They march. They have to do all this stuff all day long. And art class was the only time they got to take their ties off all day long, apart from phys ed or whatever sports they played. So they were super protective of our space. These kids were, especially the older ones who knew that this was the only reprieve they got from the madness. Yeah. So there were never discipline problems. If there ever was anything, that kid never was a problem again. I don't know what happened. But the older kids made sure
they took care of it. Yeah.
But I had a robust AP program. And so they were, you know, doing advanced placement portfolios, these military kids, to get credit and to go into arts in college.
Incredible.
And so it was a really wild experience, but ultimately a really positive one. And the person who hired me there, who became the vice president, who was the art teacher before me, huge comic collector. On a different level than I had ever experienced. It still does, as far as I know, visits the Galactic Quest shops up in Lawrenceville in the Atlanta area. Kyle and his family run those. They're amazing. But I would go with him on his Wednesday run to Lawrenceville, go pick up his books, and then he would like take them to a storage unit and file them away. And I was like, what's happening? It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You go into this building of all these boxes. And he goes, this is what I'm going to do when I retire. I'm going to read all these comics. And I was just, he's retired now. He has not gone to that storage building
ever. Yeah.
Yeah. But I stay on his good side because one day he's going to want to let those go.
Someday that collection is going to move on. Yeah. I worked with somebody who had a full collection of Marvel comics. Like that was the thing he put together. And when he retired, he was going to sell it. He's still trying to sell it because he refuses to sell it as anything but a collection. And it's like $500,000.
Yeah.
And we're talking like some real low grade, like, you know, Amazing Fantasy 14 kind of stuff. But nobody wants to give you $500,000 for this. Yeah. Anyway.
That's a library or a museum, and they're going to want it as a donation. And
exactly.
Yeah, they'll name the room after you. How's that? That's how you live.
That's legacy building is what that is. Yeah. Well,
life brought us to Savannah. My wife's was a TV reporter, so we came down here for the television gig. There were no art gigs at the time, so I parlayed what was my hobby at the time, which was web development, into being a full-time job. So started working in municipal government that way and spread out to have a pretty large, at one point we're juggling around 300 clients that were active in that space, doing everything from entertainment focused work, did a lot of stuff with Comcast Universal and a lot of recording artists and stuff like that, to private and public healthcare system work. And that is what allowed me ultimately to have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule and in my finances to be able to start the store.
Gotcha. And now, is Heidel design, is that still an active concern?
It is. The client roster is much smaller and basically kept a lot of my legacy clients that, you know, we worked with for almost 20 years with some of these guys. So definitely appreciate those relationships and what we've been able to build. And I still will occasionally take on a new client every now and then if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But those skills in branding and web development and graphic design, I use every day for the store. And I get my fix. I get my fix of it pretty strongly. So I don't miss that reduced workload at all.
Would you say that your shop's identity, let's get back to neighborhood comics now. Your shop's identity, would you say that it has shaped your customer base, or would you say it's the other way around?
It's 100% the other way around. What my expertise was coming in and what I thought was going to sell well or be popular at the store thank goodness I had a long tail to up our inventory, that I did not just immediately try to fill the store with what I thought was going to do well. When the store opened was right about the time that the Ian Bertram Little Bird book came out for Image.
Okay.
And it's such a specific book. His style is so specific. That story is so specific. And I ordered a modest amount, a new Image title. You know, we're still building our customer base. We've been open a couple of months, maybe. And we sold out of it in 5 minutes. And all day long, I had my really trusted, good regulars come in and ask about that book. Now, there's had to be a lot of education going on with those people about pre-orders and things like that in the wake
Allow
of
me
this.
to introduce subscriptions or pull boxes or whatever you call it. Yeah.
But that was the tipping point for me. Like, that's where I knew that I had, or that the store had this neighborhood, like real, honest to God, people who lived in walking distance who were super interested in artists and storytellers that took risks, that weren't necessarily just doing the stuff that the big two was doing, that wasn't just looking for graphic novels that were the classics that everybody always stocks, but they wanted to be a part of and support some stuff that they felt was kind of edgy and was different. And after that, it really did change everything to where we were going much harder on books by people like Tradd Moore and Daniel Warren Johnson. And then that spread to, we're going really hard on all the Piao Studios stuff. And we're making sure that we've got these smaller, more boutique publishers really well represented. And that went to, how much European content can we get? You know, can we order from places like Mansion Press and be able to get these indie comics from people who aren't published in the US right now? And that's that rabbit hole that we're still chasing, and that we're still always looking down for new avenues to source product that is going to make our customers excited. And for us, it's this real reverence for the history of comics, but also a true excitement about what is coming next.
Talk about you talk about the audience, the consumers, the customers that you have really shaping what you order. Can you talk about what sort of other community engagement you do, specifically the Artist in Residence program? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so Savannah is the home to Savannah College of Art and Design, which is one of the largest art schools in the country. And they have not only an illustration and commercial arts department, but they actually have a sequential art department and have had one for a long time. And there are a lot of really well-known, esteemed graduates of that program, people like Sean Gordon Murphy, and we talked about Tradd Moore earlier, and Corinne Howell, who's really having a moment right now. I could keep going, and I won't, because I will forget some very important people that are very good friends.
Yeah.
So we have that backbone here. And so whenever you have a school like that, you have to have faculty. So, you know, we've got people like Robert Atkins, who worked on IDW G.I. Joe for like a decade. And we've got people like Wookjin Clark, who have done licensed material like Gudetama, but also independent stuff like Flavor for Image, and Kate Sharon. And again, I'm going to start dropping people, so I'm going to move on. So we have professional working comic artists in town, and we have people that are aspiring to be professional working comic artists that are young, that are really just starting out. The other great thing about Savannah is that it is a creative city that is not yet as expensive as an Austin or a Portland. And so, especially if you come from one of those places, it's a steal. Brooklyn, gosh, don't even get me started. You know, that you're able to come down here and actually spend some time on your art. And there's a large service industry culture. You're going to be able to get a job doing something, and you can spend this time on your art. So we started all of this with the Artist in Residence program that we host. And I looked at a lot of other stores and cultural arts organizations that do this sort of thing to try to figure out how would this work for comic artists. And I talked to a lot of my regulars who are artists, and I got a lot of pushback at first because with those guys, they were like, it's just so solitary. We work in like dark, quiet holes, and we don't want to see people. And that's why we do this. And I'm like, okay,
right.
maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. but really early on in that first,
I've had to have this conversation though with a number of people, especially working in publishing, where you have, they just like, why is this guy acting this way? The way he got good at what he does is by not talking to people.
Correct.
It's just being alone with a pencil. He's not as good at talking to people as he is being alone with a pencil. If you're a pencil, you're his biggest fan, Yeah. Anyway.
But during that first really hot Savannah summer, we had a family come in, just looky-loos coming in off the street. And there was this audible gasp from the mother. When I look up, I'm there, and I look up, and I'm like, is everything okay? Just wanted to make sure we're good. And her expectation was that she was going to be, by going to a comic store, was going to be entering an antique store. She thought in her heart of hearts that they did not make comic books anymore. As someone who has just sunk money, time, energy, it was probably already a really slow day at that point. I was crestfallen is not the word, heartbroken, destroyed, mopped up off the floor. And so I took it upon myself to put on the happy face and go give them the walk and the talk and everything. And they were thrilled. And even the kids, of course they knew about the graphic novels that they had in their school library or whatever, but the idea of single issue comics was completely foreign to this family at all. So they left with a ton of stuff and they were happy. But I was still greatly distressed. So I started thinking about what other tourist-facing businesses in our town do. And one of our little cottage industries are all these homemade candy shops. And so the Savannah Candy Kitchen is down in the big tourist area of River Street. And their gimmick is they pull taffy in the window. So they have this big old school taffy machine, and there's a guy out there manipulating it. And so I was like, we need somebody to pull taffy in the window. And that's how the Artist in Residence program came about. We set up a drafting table right up front. You get a ton of natural light when you come in. The artists are able to practice those communication skills that we were just talking about. As people come in and ask questions about their work, they have a dedicated display where they're able to keep 100% of their sales throughout the month. We ask that they spend a minimal amount of time there because they're always going to sell more if they're there in person. And that just, has more of an impact rather than an empty chair out front. But we offer them this studio outside of home or their apartment or their dorm where they don't have these other distractions, where they have our whole store to use as a library, as reference to come in and work on their projects. The ones that do self-publish or make mini comics and zines, we always buy some of their inventory as well towards the end of it. And we started publishing anthologies to collect that work as little time capsules for us. The biggest thing that has done, number one, the artist will tell you that there's literally nothing better than to be sitting there drawing at a table and have an 8-year-old come up and say, whoa, you do this like for work? And get to have that discussion and to see a connection that your work could make with more people, to practice being able to explain your style or your materials or your inspirations. Those are things that don't often get practiced, like you said, for artists that are in their room, that are in their zone, that are making the art. You're in your head all day long. And this really does give you a chance to get out of that space and to look at your work more critically and to put it in a perspective or align it against other material, other books, other product that's out there, and really kind of evaluate what you're doing. And we've been lucky enough to have everything from young student creators in to several scholastic artists. Those, of course, do great with the kids. That's always really fun when they're like, whoa, we have this book in my school library and you did it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and everything in between, with people that are making really unique, innovative zine formats and bookbinding, to again, people that are doing everything across the board, from 3D kind of stuff to animation. But we always make sure they have some comic component to what they're putting together and what they're offering. So that has been a blast for us, because we're up to, I think we've booked through our 60th artist in residence.
Wow.
So yeah. So we're booked out now through May of 2026, and we started in June of 2021.
How long does residencies last?
They're a month. So,
Okay.
Yeah, first to the last of the month. And the other thing that we do really regularly to help empower or connect this community is we host drink and draws. We are so lucky to have a bar next door. It's the best thing ever. I like beer and they like comic books. We are a perfect team. And so twice a month, we sponsor a drink and draw activity there, and always make it very clear. You don't have to drink. You don't even have to draw. You just have to, show up, be present. Yeah. And you have to tip the bartender. No matter what you drink, you have to tip the bartender. That is number one rule. A lot of these kids have never been in a bar before, Adam. It's okay. But we got to make sure we got to make sure the next generation of bartenders stays in the business.
Yes, we do need them. We do need them so much. Well, it's so funny that you brought that up, because my very next question was, can you tell me about Brew Drink Run?
This has nothing to do with comic books, Adam, and I am furious.
I got to transition out of it, though, back into comics. You're going to love it.
I'm going to walk. This was not in the agreed pre-interview. No, so lucky to have worn many different hats in my long life. But one of those was, with a couple of friends, we started a web magazine that was dedicated to the holy trinity of drinking craft beer, brewing your own beer at home, and then running off the calories. That was Brew, Drink, Run. And we did that for a number of years. And it started off just as a website where we would do reviews, but also interviews with brewers and PR folks, of course, and other kind of sort of people that were important in the industry, like what you do. And then that became a podcast as a part of it. So we did the podcast for years, and we did a lot of video segments with breweries that were in development. And that was all really cool. And I had the chance to travel the world and drink beer on somebody else's dime.
Amazing.
So that was when we were getting paid to go to races on the other side of the world or tour a brewery that was in development. That was pretty great. What it didn't do was pay any bills. So again,
it turns
out
side
hustle.
Hard to make any money at podcasting. I have learned this as well. If it didn't feed the business itself, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I would do it for free, but it is a wonderful experience, but man, it is tough.
Well, it gives us an excuse to do things like this, right?
Yeah.
Like I love seeing you and I love talking to you when I see you at a Comics Pro, or again, like if you're on the road and that sort of thing. That is wonderful, but that's so few and far between. And you have lots of friends like that and lots of people that are connections. So by saying, hey, we're going to talk at this time, great.
I get 2 hours to spend asking you all the questions I would want to ask you at a party, and it's just you and nobody's going to distract it. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I 100% would recommend everybody start your own podcast.
Especially if you're bald and have a beard and are of a certain age. The world needs more of us out here.
So many more of us. This cookie cutters of us out here. All right, so I'm gonna draw this back, but I do want to say that I think part of it for me is getting to know people and getting to know what their interests are outside of comics, because it does inform who you are. For you, that experience allowed you to be, I think, I imagine your communication skills changed dramatically over the courses of 200 podcasts. I know they have for
absolutely,
me,
Yeah.
I know that I stumble so much over some of these questions, but like, you should have seen me when I started, I mean, it really does make a difference for that. But like all of the things that we're interested in draw us into who we are and the unique perspective, the lens that we're able to bring. I know that like now I've started in with organic gardening. I'm just really fascinated by that right now. But even in that, like it's informed the business that we do.
Are you keeping up with your yoga?
I am keeping
Good.
up with my yoga. Not as I don't go to classes as much, but for me, it's always been. It's become more diagnostic. I now know that when my body feels this way, it needs this movement. So
You and me both. That is
yeah.
the exact same situation I am in, 100%. Like
Yeah.
just being that more in touch and waking up and feeling a certain twinge or a soreness or, even something that's more mild than that. And just being like, I need to align myself a little bit and spend 15 minutes, not my whole day, not a whole afternoon, just get the mat out and get on the floor and hold a position until it goes away or whatever it needs to be.
Or just like work a few different sequences, like if my shoulder's out of whack or whatever, like or my hips. God damn, as an older guy, man, I never realized how much my hips were going to have, what conversations I was going to have with them. But that's just it. All of those things feed into what you do. Yoga has there's a reason my company's name is Prana. Is because yoga completely transformed how I think about business and how I think about communication and marketing and all of those things. So when I poke at things like the podcast and the website, I think it's because I want to know better, like, how did you get to the place that you're presenting this fully formed person, to the world? And I think that all of that goes to it. I think it's fascinating to me personally.
Yeah. No. I totally get it. And I was just teasing. I'm happy to talk about beer. We can totally pivot this podcast.
Well, that's wonderful, because my next question is, I want 5 comic series that you're enjoying right now.
Oh boy.
Along with a beer pairing for each of them, if you can. Now, I know that I'm just dropping this on you. This is a well thought out thing. And I know that you could probably spend hours just laboring over this, but I want your first thoughts. 5 is really just, you don't have to hit me with, you could hit me with a good one even.
Yeah, we're going to be here all day if we're sitting here talking 5. I got to be honest. It's hard to get me to stop talking about both of these subjects. So,
I know. Let's go.
Let's see. So one of the things that I've really been enjoying lately, it's not new. I'm such a creature of, like a lot of my customers are, and I always tell them this is okay. Sometimes we build stacks, and sometimes we don't get to those stacks for a minute. And so I am few years behind on some stacks, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Anybody listening, that is the point. Is you have the stacks. You
fill the storage room so that you can read it in your retirement. You have the step 1 is fill the storage room. 100%. Correct. The stacks are fine. Yes, I got you.
So one of those real surprise kind of books from the stack. I'm just gonna totally butcher all this, but there is a book called, I believe it's The Adventures of Adam West, that Adam West co-wrote like 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
It is so crazy that you mentioned this, because this was done by Blue Water, and I worked with Adam West on that campaign. I had him call different comic shop owners and say, he had a script, and I got him to call my friends who are comic shop owners chum. And they all, to this day, bring that story up.
God, why can't I be like 40 years older or whatever I would have to be to gotten to a point where I owned a comic shop at that point. I picked those up at a shop in Pittsburgh a couple years ago at a Comics Pro, and they just went in the drawer. I'm like, this is so silly. And so he's a superhero in one, he's a spy in one, it's a cowboy in one. And of course he's doing this because of the 66 Batman show and his place in our culture. Yeah. And that is my soft spot, man, is that 66 Adam West. I watch those reruns at my grandparents' house every day.
Same. Same.
Watch him in reruns. You got to see him back to back, so you didn't have to wait on the conclusion. It was everything. It's like an hour of it.
So good.
So I will pimp that lovely book if you guys want to go search that out. It is a lot of fun and it is silly, and I'm such a sucker for all of the kind of comic history stuff that we get saddled with, and all these fun side projects that people do.
Yeah.
And for a beer to go along with it, Adam was so smooth, and I'm so jealous that you got to spend time with this gentleman. A man of class and dignity and taste from everything that I've ever heard. I will not let you sully that.
Do not dig. Do not dig. You don't want to hear all the stories.
I will not read those books. I will not. I will never listen to Burt Ward talk about anything. But there's a really, really interesting beer. Can
we just say, if you're going to be Batman on TV, you should enjoy it as much as Adam West enjoyed being Batman on TV.
Yeah. I have no comment on any of that.
Okay.
He was a saint apparently, and world's best son. I don't know. Like 100%. All I know is, but a brewery that you might not expect, one that's totally ubiquitous everywhere. Samuel Adams, based out of Boston.
Yeah,
they do a beer. They form a beer. It's not even brewing a beer. They collage a beer called Utopias. And Utopias comes out on kind of a staggered schedule. It's not available every year or every time. It comes in a porcelain decanter.
Whoa.
It has a copper plating to it. It looks like an old still. Has a little working window where you can open it up and see Sam Adams in there doing stuff. You open up the big top. There is a bottle cap attached to the ceramic. Pop that boy open. It is not carbonated, so it is still like
okay.
It is a blend of all of these different barrel aged beers that they cellar for years and years and years and years. And the head brewer puts together this one-off that's a combination of all these different flavors. And a lot of these are, of course, going to be really heavy beers. They're going to be not just your stouts, but you're going to be thinking about like Belgian quads, really earthy, a lot of like dark fruit notes, a lot of plum, a lot of stone fruit, that sort of thing in the flavors. And then being aged in these liquor barrels. So whether it's bourbon and rum or apple brandy, you got this mix that combines with one of their like original yeast strains from when it opened way back with the Motherfunker yeast. And it produces this really, really mellow, obscenely high alcohol drink that you pour yourself, like you would pour yourself less than you would of a whiskey shot of this. And you would just sip on it. It's thick. It's a completely unique experience in the world of beer. You will never have anything else like this. And if you're lucky enough to try it on a subsequent year, it will not taste anything like the previous one. And I've been lucky enough to be in the room. Well, like, I don't know. This guy's not the world's best son, but Jim Cook, the guy who's the head of Sam Adams, I've been in the room with him and been able to sample like 10 of these side by side from different years. And a very, very, very unique, one of a kind, just like the man, the myth, the legend, Adam West. And I love that you worked with him and you actually know this book that I'm talking about. I believe it's actually, right back there next to Milk and Cheese.
That is incredible. This whole story, I could not have scripted this. This is wonderful.
Kismet.
I also, being named Adam, obviously Adam West, it allowed me when we played Batman and Robin, I always got to be Batman because I was Adam and he was Adam West. And the fact that you came up with a Sam Adams beer, I don't know if that was intentional, but
no, it's just Kismet all the way around. This was meant to be. If I didn't know you were already taken and I wasn't already taken, I would pop the question right now.
This is obvious. There's something going on here. I'm not gonna, it's not just my own narcissism that loves bald-headed bearded
dude
faces.
This ring comes off as well as on. I don't know.
Let's go. All right. I want to get into something that you and I are both also very nerdy about. Also, I'm a little plush, so we have to get into this really heady stuff. You and I first met when I was working with a POS system for design for comic shops. And I don't remember if you had opened yet or if you were just like laying the groundwork, but I do remember, actually, I remember where I was, the office that I was in, when we were having that conversation, because you were your vision was obviously really well defined, and you had some real understanding of how technology should work with comic shops. And that was always impressive to me, that conversation. I wanted to talk a moment about the current landscape of POS systems. As someone who comes with a tech background, who obviously thinks about design, you think about web sales, you think about inventory and databases and that sort of thing. I want to talk about the current landscape and what your recommendations are. Let's say I'm a comics retailer. One of the questions I'm always asked is, which one is for me? And then it's just a conversation back. And it's almost like trying to find you a brand new comic series. I have to know, what your favorite TV series was and what you had for breakfast in order to really get a good feeling for who you are. What does that look like right now?
It's really hard. And I think that the most important thing that a retailer realizes is that we are all so different, that no single system is going to do everything the way that you want it done, or even all the things on your checklist in general. You have to be willing to make some concessions. And some of those are going to be pretty serious, probably, to how you're currently doing your workflow. I had all kind of ideas when I became a comic retailer, Adam. I was going to crack this nut and we were going to figure out how to all be so successful. And I gave that up like the first time I met, I sat in a round table with 5 other retailers and realized there was no way that we were all going to do things the same way.
No.
And that was a huge awakening for me, because I really did naively think that there would be some tools or processes that would be able to unify us in a way that all ships would rise. And I think that there is some of that when it comes to like data reporting and other things from an industry standpoint.
True.
That we do lobby for and we do hope to see changes in. But when it comes to the day-to-day operations of the store, absolutely not. That is their domain, and that's the way they do it. And it's hard and it's complicated and has a lot of moving parts, and that works for them. Yeah. And they decided to stop there and get on about the business of selling comic books. And that is totally valid. I do think a lot of people right now with Comic Suite are adrift. If they did not feel adrift before, they definitely feel adrift now. There's no more, not a life raft that's going to be a one-to-one for you to kind of move on over to.
I think there's some good choices that are coming. I think Brian Garside is building something interesting that's going to help those folks.
I'll talk about Brian. Yes, and I have seen what Brian's doing with the onboarding.
Another beautiful, bald-headed, bearded man. Yes, you.
I don't know if you know this or not, and I don't mean to tell tales out of school, but I don't think he's from our country. I think he may be some sort of a spy. He also has a weird Batman thing, though. I don't know. What's up with guys in comics and Batman? Weird. Yes, when we opened with a dedicated comics point of sale system. And I did that after having a lot of conversations with a lot of other retailers, people who had been in the business for a couple of years, people who'd been in the business for 20 years. And asking those questions like, well, what's the one thing that you wish you would have had when you started, or, whatever that may be. And point of sale, we're not that old. We're six years old, 6.5, slightly taller. But our store is 6.5 years old. But even then, it was an extremely hot button question. And which one to use, and what do you need, and what does your hardware setup need to be, and how does that work with your customers? And I did come from a web development and graphic design background. And so I was very frustrated with a lot of what was being offered, because I felt like It didn't look and work like it should, but I was dedicated to have something. So I chose something, and I couldn't imagine owning a store without a system. Yeah, I can't. And it got us through, and it got us to a point where I was able to look at it in the rear view and just kind of say, okay, well, these things we did well, these things we didn't. Who is in the landscape right now? Who's making stuff right now that we can look to, that we can maybe leverage? And I revisited the idea of building my own thing again, and then I laughed and laughed and laughed and talked to Brian Garside. And we want to talk to somebody who didn't just laugh and laugh and laugh, decided to actually do something about it, like a real Canadian. Got out there and built Managed Comics, and for our store, and what I felt like we needed to do. We needed to have a solid user interface for people to get in and manage their subscriptions, where they felt like they had just enough agency, to be able to get in and browse those catalogs, to find things fairly easily, a really well-working, just a search box, honestly. Like, they need to be able to get in. Those are always going to be our power users who are going in and picking their specific variants for every title, multiples of some of them. You have to have a system for them, because your staff is going to hate them anyway. They're going to hate them even more if they have to write all this stuff down and then go look up all the SKUs and which distributor and everything else. So they know this. This isn't telling us. Our customers know this. It's fine. That's why they do this. That's why they like this. That's why we make this investment. It needs to be easy when the shipments come in, to parse those orders, to get them through as quickly as possible, to know if we have shortages, to know what our damage count is, to have solid reporting on all of these books. And I definitely wanted something web-based. I did not want to have a hardware software component that I had to maintain. I want to be able to be wherever I am and be able to pull up inventory, customer data, individual sales days, run comparison reports, any of that stuff. And Shopify was, as a base platform, was very appealing for so many reasons. It's like, if you're in the web content space, it's like using WordPress, right? So many people use it. It has so many different extensions available for it. Chances are, if you want it to do something, someone else has already figured that out. And you can plug and play. You're not up the river. You can go find it. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes it nickel and dimes you a little bit, but it saves you so much time and energy to now be able to offer something else to your customers. We have a little extension on ours that whenever you add single issues to the cart, it prompts you right there with a little line item. Do you want a bag and board with that? And that 45 cents at a time adds up. Not going to joke. And would we send it in a bag and board anyway? Yes, we would, Adam. But it's just like they're at the register.
Say that out loud.
Whatever. I want people to feel confident ordering from our mail order. The mail order part of our business, once we moved to Shopify, more than doubled, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We were able to take much more control over the actual code base their site ran on. I have expertise there, so we didn't have to farm out any of that. We were able to control page speed. We were able to get real hard data on how people were using the site, what are our heat maps, being able to figure out what was working, what wasn't, where are people being drawn through, at what point do they bail on a conversion, and how do we then appropriately follow up and try to close that deal. And Shopify has so many tools built in, those out of cart, your cart notifications. We're able to customize and tailor all of that information so that if someone puts some books in their cart and they don't check out, they get an email 30 minutes later that is very to the point. But it's also in our tone, it's in our voice, and it communicates, we probably only have one of these on the shelf right now. So if you want it, please don't wait, because we want to make sure that you get what you're interested in. And being able to sync our inventory with eBay, for better or worse, being able to sync our inventory with all these other marketplaces, And then we're able to have our fulfillment team go in and cross market in that. So if we sell something on eBay, they get a full like newsletter about our store and what we do and where we are and what our team is like. They have pictures of our team and everything else. And right there, buy it from us direct, and you actually save money because we upcharge everything that goes to eBay. Having those Shopify tools was huge. So I knew I wanted that. And then it was, well, who can play nice with Shopify? And Managed Comics, which is Brian Garside's product, is good. It's good. It works with it. It syncs the inventory over. It's its own little silo. It has its own database that it pulls records from. So you're able to collect all of this common knowledge that comes from the catalogs or from the publishers and distributors and sync all of that up. But that Shopify backend also allows us to go in and customize the heck out of that. So if we pull out, so like the new Beneath the Trees series debuted today. And Patrick Horvath is a friend to many, many comic stores, and he has been amazing to us. And so we're able to go in, and instead of just reading the default description about Beneath the Trees 2, it talks about, you know, the book club that reviewed it, or it talks about, has a picture of Patrick when he came at the shop and signed copies of Volume 1 or whatever.
That's awesome.
And so we're able to do that and not mess with anybody else's data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it clean, but let us do some things that are specific to us. So Brian's a huge streaper. I can't imagine what his help inbox is like on a given day. I try to leave him alone as much as possible. I really do, because I know he's got a lot that he's expanding and adding on. Those wheels are constantly turning. They must have really good schools up there. I don't know. He's compassionate. He's like a good person.
I work with
He's no
Brian.
Adam West.
I mean, who could be?
He'll be the first to tell you.
But I work with Brian on a near daily basis. In fact, he's my meeting right after this call. So he's wonderful, and I think that. But I think that there is so many good options for every store at this point. Right.
Yes.
I think that, you know, what Comic Shop Assistant is doing is the perfect solution for many of the people on their list.
Django is so dedicated. Like that is, whenever I hear about new features that he is rolling out or looking into, whether it's the back issue organization or whatever kind of piece of that, I'm in awe, because it really is so much heavy lifting to take on what these guys are taking on. And they're all small teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And you know, and even Stu, our old buddy Stu, the stores that have him, and the ones that love it. And I think that it's a beautiful space that we're in right now, where it's not just Comic Suite. Like there isn't just one shelf, and you know, you can have any color you want so long as it's beige, right? It's not that.
And even if you just want to manage subscriptions, there's like League of Comic Geeks and stuff like that. There are totally ways that you can just digitize your pull system, your regulars, and do completely whatever else you want to do on your side.
100%. And you're right, because I think I've said this on this show many times. I have a very firm belief that one of the reasons that comic shops are so resilient in the world where brick and mortar has just been decimated, you know, small ownership, brick and mortar is decimated, is because you're all so unique. You're all just this unique fingerprint that is you and your staff and your neighborhood. Like it just creates something that cannot be replicated by borders. It's almost impossible, you know. So I'm happy that we're finally in that space, and I'm glad that you found your right your Goldilocks of POS systems, because I knew it was going to be difficult for you.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, like I said, a lot of credit to Brian, a lot of credit to his team, a lot of credit to the other Managed Comics users, because it's a really good community to help. And that's ultimately, you need other people on the platform too, so you can all share knowledge.
All right, so we've talked about a lot about your many interests, and I feel like you and I are both have other things we're going to do today. So let's start, circling in on a landing you obviously have a lot of different projects that you are interested in and have dealt with over the courses of this long and interesting career of yours. If you had like a dream collaborative project, brings it all together, unlimited resources, like you're going in to teach art at a military school, what is that? What do you think that project looks like?
I think that if, pie in the sky, there was one way you could bring all this different expertise, for lack of a better word, or experience into something, I would love the idea of having some sort of a sequential art campus, some sort of a multidisciplinary, multi building collaborative space for people to have access to a museum or archival items so they can go and look at where we're coming from. That's everything from, of course, like classic book library sort of thing, all the way through preparatory materials and sketches and journals and other information from previous creators, to the classes and workshops, largely, if possible, like student led. So you actually have the people who are participating, like almost like a co-op, to have this space where people can be encouraged to create, they can be encouraged to share, they can be encouraged to learn, and ultimately have this safety net, this blanket, to be able to figure out how they can make comics a part of their world and their life. And whether that is as a professional, whether that is as an amateur, whether that is a curator, a sponsor, a supporter, a store owner, a documentarian, a place that we can collect all of this great stuff that we have amassed in the history of this art form, and make a launching pad for that next generation to carry it over. Because that is, without new people coming into the fold, without people being exposed to more types of comics and sequential literature, we aren't going to continue to propel forward. And for me, this is such an important form of art. It's
100%.
Baseball, jazz, and comic books. Like, give me those three things. Sorry, Brian Garside. Give me those three things, and we're gonna be okay. Yeah. At the end of the day, we've got to stay positive and keep our head down sometimes, but by focusing on the things that make us special, the things that make us unique, the things that allow us to tell our stories and to be accessible to people, there's nothing that beats comic books. Yeah. Nothing. And having that wonderful bridge between reading pages on, reading words on a page and watching a movie. I mean, it's that sweet spot for everybody. You can do it everywhere, anywhere, any time of day. There's no barrier to it being accessible. And I would love to kind of foster some space that would allow it to have that profile and recognition and that entropy machine to keep it going forward.
Yeah. You as you were talking about that, I'm reminded of something you said. I wish I'd pulled down the quote, but you were talking about your top advice for creators being how to pitch to retailers and build the relationships, right? Yeah. You talked about Horvath's, being friend to so many retailers. What advice would you give to creators who are trying to build those relationships?
Yeah, so that is there's a big door there, and you've got everybody from people who are putting together their first zine and trying to test the water and see if anybody outside of their friend group would even be interested in it, all the way through really seasoned, experienced people who are going to have books come out whether they have a relationship with you or not, and books that are going to sell well. And the kind of poles of that, you've got your Matt Rosenbergs, who is such a great friend to comic shops. Oh, and Matt is able to walk this really thin line between being a creator, working on licensed projects, but then also developing his own work and communicating all of that so directly with retailers and warmly. And he does things that not every not every creator can do in terms of that. Like he puts together merch packages on his own dime and sends them out, or he will sit there and respond to every single Blue Sky comment that he gets on a post because he thinks it may help in some way. And perhaps in tight times, most amazing of all, he orders from like every comic shop in this country. He puts in a weekly order for somehow. I don't know. I guess, he's all right. He's all right. So, but for new creators, or for creators who haven't started taking that step into networking yourself with the retailers, it's really important to just kind of have in your mind that you can't count on your publisher. You can't count on their PR team. You can't count on your co-creators. There's literally nobody that down the pipe that you can say is going to represent your book the way that you think it should be represented.
Yeah.
And by being up front and taking that torch and going direct to the retailers and saying, hey, I know that you guys are going to make and break this book. It's very simple, especially for small publishers, or, try out titles, or, new content. If you don't order this book, nobody's going to see it. And then if you don't order it and hand sell it, it's not going to get traction. And yeah, it may do something on down the road in some other format, but we've lost so much steam. We've lost so much energy. All of that vibe is gone. All that heat is gone. So how do we fix that? And our little chintzy tagline at Neighborhood Comics is we sell stories. And that's very on the surface, right? We sell books that have stories in them. But for me, that goes beyond selling you a book with a story in it. There is also the story that I tell. Oh, you're picking up the Spider-Ham books from Scholastic. Well, Shadia Amin went to grad school here, and we got to see Shadia 3 times a week, and such a good friend of the store. She lives in Atlanta now. She teaches sequential art at the SCAD campus there. And actually, she was just in last week, and so these are all signed. And so being able to sell those stories, because then that person goes home and they're like, oh, wow, I found this bookstore and they had this book and like this person signed it and they had been there, and wow, and we take a lot of things for granted that we do have access both ways, both from shop owners to creators and creators to shop owners. You don't get that like in music stores, being able to like ring up, Paul McCartney and be like, hey man, what's up? I'm trying to help you sell your record. But you can do that to some of our writers and artists that are literally at the peak of their game.
I would argue most of them are open to some sort of interaction. Yeah. Even if it's just, like you said, a comment on Blue Sky. It is like they are incredibly interested and accessible to the comics retailer, especially if that's going to create a dialogue. That I love this idea of selling stories, the story of the book itself being as important as the story inside the book. That's your winning pitch right there.
We're both small businesses too at the end of the day. And it's this, if you do well, I do well. Like there's no disconnect between that. And not every story is going to connect with me or my staff or my readers, but knowing that there's an open door to have that additional assistance, whether it's somebody like Patrick, who's like, oh, I'd love to zoom into your book club, which he did, and sat there and answered questions and was so delightful after he had already been in personally, he didn't need to do anything. And so when you are reaching out to stores, having that kind of attitude, that of we can do this together, and I've got things I can bring to the table and you've got things that you can bring to the table. So we're doing this stuff because we love comic books, right? I think all of us, for the most part, no matter where you are,
we all got started because we love comics. That's it.
Right. And so you're already starting from a level playing field. You both already understand each other. Yeah. And It's cool. It's cool to have those kind of contacts and be able to leverage them. So don't be hesitant to do it. If you are somebody who is looking to, as a self-publisher, looking to get your work in stores, I have over on my Substack, I've got a slide deck for you that's got all the information that you need, or for what a retailer, what I look for, because we buy a lot of self-published stuff. Yeah. And it is very easy to make some mistakes in how you are working with people's time and their effort and their energy, maybe because you're not used to the system and how it works and everything yet. So over at the Neighborhood Comics Substack, you check that out. There's a whole slide deck on selling your independent work to comic shops that really does list down, these are the things I want in an email. Don't give me this, give me this. Let's make it, we're businesses, we're working together. This is how we can jumpstart that. And I can't promise it'll work for every storefront, but it at least will put you on par with the type of solicitations we're getting from other publishers. And right. You'll at least be at that point where people can look at you and treat you seriously and hopefully make a decision to carry your book.
So it's really excellent advice for creators. Look at 6 years in, 6.5 years in. What advice would you give young Lee, who's starting his first comic shop right now?
Well, the short answer is always don't do it, right? That's what everybody says, right? That is the number one answer. Yeah. And when I was doing my research, that was the number one thing everybody told me when I was going to talk to Kindle at Up and Away, or I was talking they're like, you don't want to do this.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this with your life?
You seem to already be an adult.
Couldn't you do something else?
Do you not have any other avenues? Yes, exactly. Yeah. So to go back and speak to myself, I guess, I think there were definitely some things that we did right. We were slow to grow.
Very smart. Let's double tap that. Yeah. I think the number one mistake that is made by new stores is overcommitting to inventory up front.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I couldn't imagine what we would have been stuck with had we ordered the way I thought we were going to sell. Yeah. No idea. And we had a long lead up. So we had a couple of years of being incorporated that we were buying other stores' inventory. We were able to ask those people questions. We were able to really get in there with people that had hard luck cases and try to understand why that happened. And inventory commitment is always a big, 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 big part of that. But the thing that I would say to really know is that for me, we have had a really, really, really strong relationship between myself and our clerks, our staff. And it took me a very long time to start relinquishing some of the duties of running the store to someone else because, skin in the game. Yeah. I wanted to make sure it was going to be right and that it was going to be as good as it could be. And I think I did that at the detriment to helping some of those employees develop, helping them get better faster. Mm-hmm. And for me, being able to take a little bit of a step back and be able to look at the store through different eyes, because when I had touched everything, I couldn't see where the opportunities were. And once I got this amazing team in, we've had some of these employees, we're a small team, but, we keep people around, 4 or 5 years is, not uncommon for our team members. And letting them grow into a position as opposed to telling them what the job is, but kind of cutting them off at the knees, not letting them actually have that authority or trusting them to do it. Mm-hmm. That was a very, very, very hard lesson for me to learn. And I think if I would have done that sooner, we would be further along in terms of how we've developed and what we've learned and how we can serve our customers and our community better. So they're the heart and the soul. They're the lifeblood. They're the ones who really are boots on the ground, and they contribute so much. So
I love that. And it definitely reflects my time as a retailer. And in many ways, my time in running Prana now, that, when I empower my team to make those decisions, it's no longer for me to be inspired. right? Because
And
I'm going
it's
to look at this.
often,
I'm always going to
yeah,
solve the same problems the same way. I'm
that's
never
it.
going to be surprised by the way I solve a problem, you know?
And being surprised in a world where everything kind of runs by a script when you work in retail,
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Having people that haven't had that responsibility before try to fit that, you know,
Yeah.
square into the round peg it's wonderful, because those ideas, even if it's not the right one for that application, is still pretty creative and different, and it never would have occurred to me, but what if we put it over here instead? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're there. They know the stuff, man. You just got to let them do it.
As I'm preparing for our interview today, I was getting my office here ready, and it's still a work in progress. But I was going through a bunch of old storage stuff and things, I have like a collection of things that inspire me, not necessarily things that I want, a collection of. But and one of the things that showed up was this. That came from a company called Mischief, and they did the Peeps of Willendorf. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
I have not.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Anyway, like the statue of Will. Anyway, Mischief, big inspiration for me. I was introduced to them by Dinesh from Bad Idea, and a lot of the stuff that we did, some of the stuff we did over there, we stole wholeheartedly from Mischief, but it was pulling from outside of our standard sort of we're not looking at Stan and Jack's work and trying to come up with some new take on it. We're taking from outside of comics and trying to bring these ideas in. You and I, just you talking about your staff and how they have been able to, empowering them has brought that on. It made me realize you're part of what you do as bringing in all these sort of disparate interests has allowed you to create this unique space. Are there any places you go to for inspiration now that would be a surprise?
Yeah. So one of them is actually very, very hyper local. So we have a wonderful set of entrepreneurs here, a husband, wife, family team, and they started bringing it back to beer. They started a brewery, 7 years ago, and it's called Two Tides here in Savannah, and did a really, really interesting neighborhood focus. Restored an old Victorian house, and so the tap room is upstairs and the brewery is downstairs, and slowly expanded. But as they started from day one, their commitment to their brand and their story made them appear like a company with a giant advertising budget, with this much bigger pedigree of where they were coming from. But they did that at the same time being true to where they were and who their customers were and who their team was. So the way that they sought out creative talent to help them tell their story, the way that they invested in that talent, where otherwise it's such an easy thing to be like, oh, go out and take some pictures with your iPhone. Yeah, and we'll just post those. That's great. But to like have a photographer on staff when you have like 10 people working for you, that's huge, have a product photographer. And so as they've continued to grow, instead of making the brewery bigger, instead of sending more kegs out to retail, and they kind of hit their max on their space, expanded a little bit, but then they pivoted and they've started to do all these complementary businesses. So they opened a coffee roasting company. They opened a distillery. They opened this tiny little spirits bar to help support in what they do with the distillery. And they just opened a diner, and this commitment that they have to being available to the people who live in their communities, of sourcing their labor and their inventory and all of that from the surrounding area, and all the while looking like $1 million from their design standpoint, from their merchandise, everything that they do when they promote themselves, which is constantly. It's a grind in this business in any business, small business, to remind people that you exist. Yeah. And in the wake of a Prime Day or whatever, you're just like, dude, how many? No, I can't with this. Do not come in here and tell me what is on sale today. Like you're in the wrong place. But that it is such an inspiration. So definitely, if you are a fan of product photography, if you're a fan of historic preservation, if you are a fan of mom and pops that are really kind of doing the best of breed of something, check out what Two Tides Brewing is doing online. Their Instagram is especially good, but everywhere they're great. Liz, the senior partner of that team, is honestly just the biggest inspiration inside and out, and she's like half my age and is killing it. So I think that they're definitely somebody who I feel like does it right, and it's not so many tiers above me that it seems impossible. They definitely are hustlers and skin in the game folk, and are making good things that make people happy, and they're keeping those people around.
I'm inspired just hearing about them. I'm looking forward to digging in.
Come on down, Adam. I'll take you out.
Definitely. I will tell you that our time in Savannah, just on a couple road trips now, every time we're there, we're like, we really could just live here, right? Like we just move here. There's nothing stopping us. We're adults. Yeah. Anyway, before we take off, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that the literal dozens of people who are going to listen to this have a chance to hear?
Wow. With great power comes great responsibility. As a wise man once said.
Yes, a dear uncle. Yeah.
I think that for me, the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity, is still finding the sense of fun in what we do. And it is so easy to get burned out. And that is what I saw so many times during our research phase for this, was stores that just could not find that joy anymore for whatever reason. And a lot of those, it was because they had to really cut back. They had to be really austere, and that made it very difficult for them to do. But even if that's the case with your store and where you're at and what you feel like you can do financially, try to look for ways that you can introduce something that you're super passionate about into your schedule, into your programming, into your day, that you can look forward to. We've got great book clubs. We've got, all these different opportunities for people to come together. We have our Savage Sundays, which are, zine and mini comics workshop from the local Zine Fest comes together and puts it together. And so look for ways that aren't necessarily going to be money days or, some big tent pole. A little place for you to start building out that community or that habit or that craft or that muscle that you really want to exercise, that you can be excited about it coming up. Because I think if you can hold on to that, it does just make the rest of it a little bit lighter. It's not going to solve all your problems.
Yeah.
But at least you may be in a different place when you have a difficult customer come in, headspace wise, or, you're having to make some of those inventory choices or having to make a hard decision with an employee. Just trying to remember why it is you do this. Because it's a job.
It is
a job. And it's not a lot of people get to say we do what we do. And there never is an opportunity where there isn't that little spark of recognition and kind of amazement at, oh, you can make that work? And I'm like, yeah, for now.
So far.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, today was okay. Then it rained, so probably nothing now. Oh well. So,
well, Lee, I'm getting the bark that I have to take somebody out. It's because it is that kind of time. But what do you have? Oh yes.
Come here, girl. Come here. Adam wants to say hi.
You just convinced me. I've been thinking about putting a couch right here, and I think you just convinced me I need a couch in the background. Look at this one. Ah, look at that face. Hi.
She has a giant GPS receiver because she is an escape artist.
She's a runner?
A little scot-free. Yep, for sure.
I got you. So. Well, let's see if Phoenix is a hand. Phoenix, are you here?
Doggy date.
No. Anyway, all right. Tell us how people can find you, Lee. Tell them where they can see your Instagram and that Substack that you were talking about.
Absolutely. So on all the social media platforms, we are at NBRHD Comics. So it's like neighborhood without some vowels in there. NBRHD Comics. That's going to be for the Substack. That's going to be for the Blue Sky. That's going to be for the Instagram. That's going to be for whatever. Check out our website, neighborhoodcomics.com. That's where all of our events are going to be held, or all that information is there. All of our store inventory is online. If you have been looking for some really cool back issues, we have some really interesting Silver Age Marvel stuff up right now that is on the website. So definitely check that out. In addition to all the week's new releases, they go up every Wednesday morning as well, of course. And follow Adam down whenever he's driving down the East Coast, just kind of caravan. He'll lead you right to our door.
It'll be a good time. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, buddy. Well, my name is Adam Freeman. You've been listening to Comic Industry Insiders, and it is run by Prana Direct Market Solutions. Just Google any of those names. You'll find us. Lee, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to my next road trip now, even that much more.
Thanks, Adam.
Soon. Namaste.